to Sagas and Sass Season 3, brought to you by Geek Saga Entertainment. I'm Tara, along with fellow hosts Nick and Jonathan.
This episode will cover parts 1 and 2 of the Silvered Serpents, the second installment in Roshani Chokshi's Gilded Wolves trilogy.
If you're watching live, join us in the chat or after the fact. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Sagas and Sass to continue the conversation. And please note that the views expressed in this show are those of the hosts as individuals and do not necessarily represent the show as a whole.
Don't forget that we now have a Patreon with 10 tiers ranging from $1 a month to $40 a month. It offers tons of ways to support us and receive some great perks in return. You can check it out at patreon.com/geeksaga_entertainment.
At the end of the Gilded Wolves, Tristan was dead, Layla and Severin were at odds, and Severin refused his chance to retake the air test and ascend to his rightful place as head of House Vanth. But then the matriarch of House Core told Hypnos, head of House Nyx, that Severin actually wasn't the heir. And so, as we join our cookies and the Silvered Serpents, we are absolutely scratching our heads about all of that. The Silvered Serpents open much like the Gilded Wolves did, that being with a prologue, this time focused on Delphine, House Core's matriarch. We already knew from Severin that before his parents died, she was basically like a very close aunt to him. But it seems that when he was orphaned, she walked away from him and never looked back. However, it sounds like, as with so much in this series, things aren't quite what they seem. Delphine certainly loves Severin, and the prologue recounts her being confronted by his mother, who asks Delphine to protect her son. Note that we get any additional information as to why that is, at least not yet. Instead, we dive right back into the main storyline, though it's a very different start than when we saw in the first book. While Severin and Enrique are still living at La Eden, Layla has moved out, and Zofia has been away for some time, visiting her sister in Poland, supposedly for Hanukkah, though we learn that in reality Zofia's sister is dying, which Zofia is keeping from her fellow cookies.
However, Severin quickly brings them all back together with the news that he finally has information on the next item they've been trying to acquire, a book called The Divine Lyrics, the same book that Layla has been searching for because she believes it will allow her to live past her 19th birthday. But now Severin wants it as well, and his reasoning is all sorts of messed up. It all comes back to him hating himself for not protecting Tristan, and now he wants to use the book to become a god so that he can resurrect his friends and, not feel pain or loss or guilt. So yeah, super healthy. Anyway, that's a thing that's happening. Next thing we know, the cookies are on their way to Russia, where they immediately dive into heist number 1. This involves them getting a hold of some special spectacles that will allow them to discover the location of the fallen house's sleeping palace, the place where they supposedly stored their treasure and therefore probably this VIB. Very important book. Of course, this mini heist isn't without its problems, but in the end they pull it off, though just as they are about to celebrate, they're attacked. Delphine, of all people, saves them and then brings Severin and Hypnos to a tea room that specializes in something called blood forging, a forging art that is apparently very much looked down on and most often used for sexual things. Well, Delphine admits that she also wants the Divine Lyrics book. Surprisingly, Severin agrees, and he says that he will deliver it to her, though he, of course, thinks that this will only be after he gets what he needs from it.
When the cookies convene again, they quickly figure out that the spectacles respond to music. So Hypnos plays a C major scale on the very convenient piano, and the spectacles reveal their secret, coordinates that will surely lead them to the sleeping palace. They meet up with Delphine and 2 new characters, Ruslan, the patriarch of Russia's House Dazbog, and his cousin Eva, who somehow specializes in both ice and blood forging, and is also super rude to Layla while making eyes at Severin. Finally, the cookies and their new companions head to the coordinates revealed by the spectacles and then use those spectacles to, well, make the sleeping palace appear. It turns out to be more cathedral than palace, with a library that seems to be empty of books, a huge room full of ice-forged animals, and an ice grotto that appears to be empty until Severin tries to head up some stairs, which causes one of the ice animals to attack and earns Severin a suffocating ice mask. Zofia stops the animal with a fiery net, but it takes Eva rushing in with her special powers to save Severin in a sort of mouth-to-mouth situation. right in front of Layla, of course. And that, dear listeners, is where we leave our cookies for now. Okay, so one thing I wanted to touch on, because I don't believe we discussed this much, if at all, in our last episode, but it features very heavily in this book, particularly in the very beginning, is Tristan, not his death so much, but the fact that he was killing and dissecting birds in his gardens, and not like in a for science type of way.
Nope.
You know, and like I said, it's brought up several times in the first Severin and Layla chapters in the Silver Serpents. So I wanted to make sure that we discussed it. There is a lot of, there's a lot of like Tristan has demons and this is how he was getting them out. And I don't know. I wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on this, because I am just over here like, I mean, at least it was just birds, but it's also still torturing animals, bad sign. And I feel like was there more to it? Like, I don't know. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
It's just weird. Like, they don't really, aside from it giving Tristan like a dark side to his personality, we don't really have any understanding or reason for why it happens, or why it happened, I guess, past tense.
Yeah, there was a lot of I think it was, sorry, I'm gonna hair in my mouth. Ugh, dogs, man. There's several of the chapters that are Severin chapters in the first part of this book open with, kind of looks back again. In the Gilded Wolves, it looks back at the foster parents that they had, but in this case, it's more like looking back at how those people died, and it's like, are they hinting this?
It does seem to imply that at least some of them Tristan might have had a hand in.
Yeah. And obviously these are bad people, so it's like, I don't know like how bad I feel about it, but I am very, I don't know. Yeah, it was very much like we were introduced to this idea that he was the reason why there weren't any birds in the gardens is because he was killing them, like he was catching them and killing them. And it just, I don't know, like, the torturing small animals thing, it's like, it just brings you back to, that's what people with severe like psychopathic issues do. And I mean, it made me think of like Joffrey, right? But clearly Tristan had Severin there, I guess maybe tempering him, which is weird because you wouldn't think Severin would temper anybody. But yeah, I don't know. It's I don't know how much they're going to explore this further, honestly. But it just, they mentioned it at the very end of the last book, and then the author, Roshani Chokshi, really like drove it home in this first part of this book. And it was kind of like, it felt weird. Like, Tristan's gone. Why are we dwelling? I don't know. I feel like there has to be some reason why we're dwelling on him doing this.
Well, maybe because he's not really gone, right? I mean, isn't there always the possibility of some sort of blood magic to bring him back?
I mean, to be fair, Rougebert chomped on a suicide pill and apparently didn't actually like do it right and did live. Yeah. So, but no, I do believe Tristan is dead. It's just, I don't know. I think it's going to come up again, and I wanted to make sure I got everybody's, if you had thoughts on it, got them, because I feel like this isn't going to just go away.
Well, I think in some ways it's another thing for Severin to feel guilty about, that they can lead towards he has all his own demons and guilt, and now this is something additional to be guilty about.
Not everything is about you, Severin. Jeez.
Like, I'm just saying, from the author's perspective, if it wasn't clear that he feels guilt, now he really feels guilt.
Oh God. Well, I mean, on that note, I don't quite have it in this order, but since we're already talking about Severin and the apparent need for him to just feel more guilty and for things to just be more all about him, I wanted to quote something. I wanted to read a passage because, like, already, as we talked about 2 weeks ago, as we talked about when we discussed the end of Gilded Wolves, Nick and I specifically were kind of like, ugh, Severin, this is like, we don't care for this right now. But this passage just had me like, absolutely not. Please don't. Severin thinks we could be gods. That was what the divine lyrics promised. If he had the book, he could be a god. A god did not know human pain or loss or guilt. A god could resurrect. He could share the book's powers with the others, turn them invincible, protect them forever. And when they left him, as he knew they'd always planned to, he wouldn't feel a thing, for he would not be human. Oh my God, emo boy. Blech.
Yeah.
Like, anybody, did you, when you guys read that passage, were you also like, just, no, please stop, why? Because that's how I felt.
Absolutely.
I just, you could be a god. Have we not learned our lesson? Did you not see what happened to Rouge Bear? Like, you already know what happened to the Fallen House. I don't think this is not going to turn out the way you want it to. How could you possibly think that it's just going to work for you when it didn't for anybody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I mean, and just in terms of what that lends to his already highly questionable character, like, I don't want to feel anything. I guess maybe he's like the opposite of emo boy. He does.
Well, he's trying to. I think he's trying to bury all his emotions, sort of Vulcan-like, and just does a poor job of it.
Except the Vulcans are specifically like they're in a lot. What is a logic-based society? This is not. You know, and I mean, I agree. I get what you're saying. He's trying to get rid of or bear. Well, really, I don't even think just bury. I think he wants to get rid of feeling, and it's like, dude, that's not how things work.
Nope.
And it leads to him just being mean as fuck to everybody. And I'm just really tired of him. Really tired of him.
Yep.
I don't know. Like,
yeah, he was definitely mean to Zofia.
I mean, yeah, he's mean to everyone. He and Layla are absolutely awful to each other. And granted, it is more on him.
Well, I think that's more of they're mutual awful to each other, as opposed to the Zofia I thought was totally unwarranted.
Zofia was completely unwarranted, but at the same time, like, Layla is. It's sort of, I don't want to get into this too much, but there is no such thing as mutual abuse. There is an abuser and there is somebody who reacts possibly badly to that abuse, right? Severin is an abuser and Layla is reacting badly to it. Is she behaving properly? No. Is she being mean back? Yes, but it's on him, right? Like,
yeah,
it's on him. And the fact that they all have just kind of moved on, like Enrique's the only one who even still lives at Leden, and Zofia would too, but Zofia left, and this whole thing with her sister being sick is obviously true, but and to be fair, Severin does offer to care for her sister, right? I mean, with his own money and everything, because he needs Zofia with him. And it's like, I'm not adding this to your debt. I'm just going to care for your sister. I'll make sure you get her letters, you know? So there's that at least, but it's kind of a weird side plot that I'm like, what's going on over there? You know, like she's very ill. Like she almost died and then sort of got better. And I don't know. But yeah, in terms of Severin, like, do either one of you like him right now?
Absolutely not.
No.
Okay. I mean, and to be honest, I'm on the cusp of like no matter, like, there can be redemption arcs, right? I don't think I'm ever gonna like him again. He can be
part
less
of
of
the
an
problem
asshole,
is he started as a character that I was kind of meh about, and by the end of book 1, I actively disliked him, and now he's getting worse in book 2. Like it's hard to imagine a redemption arc that does anything better than bring him up to meh again.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you like Severin at first, Jonathan, or?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I did at first, but he's becoming
Yeah, I didn't.
a jackass. I mean,
I didn't.
he always had a bit of a jackass in him, but there's the
Yeah,
good jackass, and then there's the jackass.
I didn't like love him, but I think I was a little bit more positive to him than you were, Nick, just based on conversations we've all had. And but I agree. Like, again, we talked about this in episode 44, at the second half of Gilded Wolves, quite a bit, where it was like whatever positive feeling I had had about this dude went out the window.
Yep.
And now it's just like you said, he is just digging that hole real damn deep. And that this is a book of POV characters, right? We've got Severin, Layla, Zofia, and Enrique. But Zofia and Enrique are, like, I would say Severin and Layla are the leads. Zofia and Enrique are supporting. And I'm real pissed we haven't gotten a Hypnos chapter so far.
I know. We got teased with one at the end of last book.
We're real mad. I like, part of me is almost like, oh no. So the first book opened with a prologue that was in Delphine's perspective. We only knew her as the matriarch of House Core at that point. Now we know her actual first name. This book also opened with an epilogue.
Oh yeah.
So I have a feeling, with a prologue. So I have a bad feeling that we're not going to get actual Hypnos POV, that we're just going to get an epilogue. And this is, I have not looked forward. I don't know for sure. I have read farther than what we're discussing tonight, but I haven't gotten to the end quite yet. I was like, I had to hold myself off.
Roshani, we need Hypnos POV.
I know, right?
Come on.
Like, but I have a feeling that's what's happening here. So we'll see, I guess. But and again,
I suspect you're right.
Yeah, only because we've gotten through parts 1 and 2 without a Hypnos chapter. Yep. But the book did open with the same prologue character as the first book. So yeah, I which, honestly, I respect the pattern. I really do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just want Hypnos.
I want Hypnos more than I want Severin in all the ways, honestly.
Hypnos is like my favorite character, so give me more Hypnos. Although
he and Enrique,
yes, also,
like, poor this whole like, so far this whole book is just poor Enrique. Like, he has that speech prepared that he's giving at this fancy library in Paris, and nobody shows up, and then he's constantly in his head about feeling weird about Hypnos, and nobody listens to me, and I can't. I know we've talked. Does Severin have forging abilities? No. I feel like we couldn't remember the last time we got together, and now I forgot to look it up. I don't think he does.
He doesn't.
He does.
Severin?
Yeah, Severin does not have forging abilities.
Not that we know of.
No. Right. Okay. Yeah. So Severin does not.
Or that he knows of. He doesn't appear to have any knowledge of any forging abilities either.
Yeah.
So he's like an agent, right? He gets all the really talented people together. Unfortunately, Enrique also no forging abilities, but him and Severin do have their own talents. I'll give Severin that.
Yes.
Severin have their own talents, but Enrique has worked very hard for his. Severin just kind of is like, I'm a good observer.
I wouldn't use the term. I wouldn't use the term agent. I would use the term CEO. I mean, he's not really an agent.
He is an asshole, so that fits.
He's not really an agent. Agents, represent people. CEOs put teams together, and
he's the mastermind.
True. I mean, So when it comes to Enrique, though, Enrique's just having a real rough time of it.
He is my baby.
I know. I just want to ruffle his adorable hair and like tell him he's smart and listen to whatever he has to say, because apparently nobody listens to him.
Mhm.
I mean, they really don't. Also, like,
Yeah, no, they really don't.
He's not.
Except Ruslan.
Yes. Yeah, we'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, nobody really listens to him. I feel really bad, and he's just having a rough time. It's very clear that the thing with him and Hypnos is I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I think that whatever's going on with Hypnos, he doesn't have it in him to be in a relationship. Yeah, the way that Enrique wants a relationship. That's okay though, because we all know that Enrique and Sophia are still eyeing each other, you know. So
well, now Enrique's also eyeing. Crap, I forgot her name.
is it Eva or Ava?
I think it's Ava.
Okay, yeah, I said Eva when I was reading the summary, and I was like, "Oh, she's Russian. I bet it's Ava." He is. I mean, but I feel like that's in like a she's really attractive sort of way,
True.
not necessarily. I am immediately interested in this person sort of way, and you know, hey, like you can absolutely be like that person's hot, but you know they don't necessarily make your blood boil in the right ways. So
I do think that Ava may make their blood boil in the wrong ways.
yeah, because that's the thing. Like everybody notices that she's being nasty AF to Layla, which is just like, oh, I don't. Okay, in terms of Enrique, so we're all agreeing he is just nobody's listening to him, and it's like poor sad Enrique time. Right? Like, and he didn't really. I do feel like they are fleshing out his character more, or the author, Roshani Chokshi, is fleshing out his character more, even though it almost seems like I'm seeing less. Like, I feel like there were less POV chapters for him and Sophia. It felt like there was a lot of Severin and Layla, but I could be wrong about that. It could just be because I'm annoyed with Severin and also annoyed in a way. Like I'm also annoyed with Layla because, girl, just brush off that brush your shoulder off. Get rid of that. Like get rid of that dude. I get that they're teenagers though. I've been there, and I'm looking. You know, I'm thinking back to 18, 19-year-old Tara and how many people I was just like.
But see, this is something. I don't think that's the correct worldview to take, though, because people matured a lot younger back then. You were forced to. So in some ways, yes, it's 18, 19-year-old Tara, but in other ways, they're more like 28, 29, 30-year-olds today. I mean, their life expectancy was different. Their expectations of where you were in life at certain ages was different back then.
Well, I mean, for Layla, the life expectancy is certainly.
Well, no, I talk about in general.
I know.
You know, people were. I mean, a lot of people were out working for a living at 14, right? I mean, people were expected to be married at 18. It was just very, very different. And to put our life expectancy, our life expectations, and where we were in life at certain times, with someone from in a fantasy world, but at least one based on Earth history, a certain degree, and be 250 years ago it's just very different.
I don't disagree, but I do. I mean, that doesn't change the fact that the way Layla is about Severin it's not. It's like it's very much like very young woman obsessed with the wrong dude. And
yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's not necessarily something that happens at 18. That happens at every age.
Maybe, but at some point at some point, me at least, I grew up, right? Like I moved on from that sort of, it took a while, I'll be honest, early 30s, but it was also like I had two separate relationships that were very different and also very abusive. So I'm looking at it from that perspective where like now I would not fucking put up with that, right? And part of it is because when the first relationship was absolutely because I was just young and immature and whatever, like all the things you think about a person that's in their late teens and early 20s. The second relationship, I should have known better, but it was that obsession. And actually like the relationship between Layla and Severin reminds me way more of the relationship I had in my early 30s that was super abusive, because I feel like I'm like reading the way Layla's thinking, and it's like he's so awful to her, and he's also like not just awful to her, he's kind of awful period, and she sees it, but she's also just like so she it's like that, it's like a pheromone thing. She's like whatever he smells like is like up in her nose all the time, and she can't get over it, and it's just like I just want to
Well, maybe he's forging that.
yeah. That's his forging ability, to make everybody just like drawn to him. God, I hope not. That's gross. Well, like actually, and speaking of forging abilities like that, the whole like blood forging thing, and I do understand why, because I actually, after I wrote the summary, I thought about it a little bit, and then I was like, oh, never mind. I get why ice and blood forging would be similar, because there are trace like elements of metals in ice and in blood. And so I get why somebody would have an affinity for both. But the blood forging thing was, as far as I can remember, not at all introduced in the first book. It might have been very briefly mentioned in terms of like, you have these are the affinities, right? Like in a brief, like quick explanation, but it certainly wasn't expounded upon. And I really don't remember there being a thing called blood forging. So the fact that at least so far, it seems that it's going to factor in quite a bit in this book is interesting. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, you know, when we were reading the whole Grishaverse, how many times did something come up where it's like, okay, you've got these basic powers, right? And then it turns out they've expanded. And I don't even think it was necessarily an I'm expanding my magic world. It's more just like, this is a thing that existed and I'm putting it into this story because this is where it fits. You know, so not complaining at all, but I don't know. So what do you guys think about the blood forging aspect and how it has come up so far?
I'm still, I don't know. Like you said, I don't think it was actually mentioned in the first book.
No, it was. It was definitely mentioned in the first book, but it was in passing.
Okay.
They definitely mentioned that people could blood forge and that it was used primarily in Houses of Ill Repute. And as a narcotic.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, it's very interesting just to have it drawn out a little bit more. But I'm still kind of holding out judgment, I guess.
Yeah, it feels like one of those things where if it's being used like it is in the tea room, for instance, it seems that everybody involved there is consenting, right? So if it is being used consensually, then hey, more power to you, man. If that makes your experience like better, I ain't gonna argue with it. And I'm not gonna argue with people who say like I'm a blood forger and become like sex workers even, honestly. You know, that's whatever. Like, hey, you got a talent and you enjoy it and everybody's consensual, like everything's consensual, use it, right? But at the same time, I have a feeling that there's gonna be like I think that's gonna be used bad, like really, and that could go for all forging. All forging, right, could be used badly, but this specifically, this idea of possibly being able to like control another person, I guess, in a way, is, that like I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it for that. So
yeah, it gives me love potion vibes.
yeah. What is the love potion called in Harry Potter? Amortentia. I think is what it's called. Like, yeah, I don't. As long as it's used consensually, which granted that never would be, I don't think. But as long as it's used consensually, it's like, okay, everybody consents. It's fine. You guys are using this to up your game with each other. Great, good job. But I have a bad feeling that's not going to be how it's always used.
Yeah.
And I also don't. This brings us around to our new characters. We'll discuss Eva first, since we're discussing blood forging. I see, like, now I'm being like I don't like Eva, and I feel bad, like as a femme presenting person, that I'm being like, I don't like Eva, but she's also being like super mean girl. And Layla even thinks like, whatever, I get it, man. Some girls are like this, but she's trying not to play along, and I'm like, yeah, go Layla. But also, Eva is being really weird and mean, and like you're calling out Layla for being a mistress and like being useless because you think she's useless because you don't know what her powers are, her power is. But you're a blood forger, so you could be doing the same thing. Like, you're not, I guess, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on Ava? Because at this point, I'm in the mindset of I don't want girl on girl drama. And that's what I feel like this is like. She literally at this point seems to exist just to have girl on girl drama.
Yeah, I don't like her.
I mean, she hasn't really done much yet, right? Other than be mean to Layla.
Well,
but that's a thing. She's being extra mean to Layla. And she seems to be perfectly fine with Enrique or with Zofia, right? Like, it seems to be just Layla. So,
well, it's clearly just because Layla and Severon. Layla is Severon's mistress, right? Like, of record or whatever.
Yeah.
However, they set it up so that she would be able to sleep in his bed all the time. So it's clearly like a whole thing about that.
Which, fine, but I don't know, Jonathan. What do you have any thoughts on Ava? Like, on her just being kind of.
Well, I mean, she's obviously interested in Severon, also, and which proves that she too has terrible taste in men, and should probably spend more time going after Enrique, who seems to. Well, we can talk about his clear bisexuality later.
I actually have a story I'm going to tell you guys after we're done here that I literally cannot repeat on live webcasts. But I do have a story I'm going to tell you guys that is kind of in the, oh my God, this just makes me dislike Eva more because of personal experience sort of thing.
Gotcha, yeah.
I don't know why why does everybody like Severin so much? Like, okay, so he's attractive. Whatever, man. Like, I've met plenty of
plenty of attractive dudes.
Yeah. Enrique, clearly attractive. Hypnos, clearly attractive. I mean, I think even Ruslan with his bald head, like, seems to be very eloquent and friendly and not unattractive.
And the assumption of when they cast these characters in the eventual TV show or books, they'll be even more attractive.
I don't know. Man. That's like a 50-50 chance. I feel like with Game of Thrones, it was one of those things where they cast some way too attractive people for the characters who were supposed to be unattractive, and then they cast some people who are attractive people, but nowhere near like the 10s that I feel are described in
So,
Martin's.
so you were so you're talking about Cersei, I think, right?
Actually, no. I'm not going to say who I'm talking about because I don't want to be rude. But
But that is the problem with really like exuberantly saying how attractive somebody is in the books, because I don't think, if you're basically saying this person is one of the most attractive people in the world, it is almost impossible to capture that in a visual medium.
True.
Because attractiveness is subjective, right? So even if the actor you got to play Enrique or Hypnos, for example, was very attractive, it doesn't mean that they are attractive in the way that the words describe them.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and also, have you ever met a half Algerian with violet eyes? Have you ever met
No, I
anybody
haven't.
with
I
violet
haven't met any
eyes?
half Algerians yet, so
I have. My cousin is, but I mean, for real, like I've never met anybody with violet eyes. I don't think that
No.
is a naturally occurring pigment. I have a friend who has the most like absolutely gorgeous. I want to call them blue, but they're not. I could not even describe the color of her eyes. It is the fucking prettiest color you've ever seen. But I mean, I think I have very pretty colored eyes. Mine are like teal, but I don't think I've ever met anybody with purple eyes. That is not a naturally occurring color. I feel like we're in an anime, like.
Yeah, but didn't you just assume that they forged that?
I don't
No.
think. No, I don't think so. I mean, it's sort of like the Targaryens, right? Like, has Roshani Chokshi read Game of Thrones? Like, has she read Song of Ice and Fire? Like, is that where she pulled like King Severin from? Like, oh, anyway. So speaking of new characters, Ruslan, or am I pronouncing that right, Nick? Do you remember how they?
Ruslan.
I believe it's Ruslan.
Okay, Ruslan. Is bald. It's like he's very kind and very friendly and effusive in a good way.
Well, let's rephrase that. He appears very kind, very friendly, and effusive.
Yeah.
We're not far enough into the story to know if all that is true.
I know, but I really want to like him. I'm worried he's going to be bad. I don't want to theorize, but I do have a feeling we're being set up for Ava and Ruslan to switch places in a sort of like good cop, bad cop situation. But all that said, right now, he is very kind and friendly and effusive and also very bald and is obsessed with people's hair. And Sophia, like he asks Sophia to pat his head. And they ask, what do you think of Sophia? What do you think of Ruslan? And she's like, he's soft. Because she patted his soft bald head. And he's constantly he's just obsessed with people's hair. It's very adorable. And I just am like, I have a bad feeling, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I have a really bad feeling about this. Quote at Star Wars.
Yes.
But he seems so good. And I don't know. Like, I don't want him to be bad. But yeah, again, bad feeling that the positions are going to be switched. Maybe not totally, but something like that. But that said, I as of right now, as of what I know about Ruslan right now, I like him and I want him to continue to be good bald man. He's very funny and he does listen to Enrique, like we mentioned earlier, and that's kind of he listens to Enrique. Although I'm really weirded out about the fact that he has his like arm in a sling and is like clearly his arm is injured, and Ava is also like limping around, and it's like, why are you both injured in one of your limbs? Like, what have you been doing? I think that's part of why I'm like, I don't really know if I should believe in you too.
Like, were they in that battle at the end of book 1?
Yeah. Or just God knows what they've been doing elsewhere, and like it feels really weird that these two supposedly related people happen to have major injuries to both of their limbs. Like, I don't know.
A little fishy.
Well, it's a little bit. So I don't know. So other thoughts about Ruslan. Like, I can't be the only one who has thoughts about this guy, because like I really want him to be good, but I'm also worried.
Yeah, I'm always waiting for that other shoe to drop.
Are we all just too jaded? What about you, Jonathan? Are you also jaded? Oh, well, no, actually, clearly you are, because you already said we're all just too jaded.
Yeah.
We've read too much J.R.
Well, it's also, it's a series. It's modern. I feel like, and maybe I'm just misremembering stuff I read when I was younger, but it seems like almost every current series or novels in the fantasy and science fiction has betrayals at some point. So,
Well, for sure, but
I'm just anticipating this one.
At the same time, I think this, like, it feels very Grishaverse to me, probably because it's more so the Shadow and Bone trilogy than the later, than like Six of Crows or the Nikolai.
Oh, really? I was going to say the opposite.
Well, in terms of the characters, I mean, like, how, I'll be honest, how kind of basic they are, and I say that in like I say that in that sounds worse than I mean it to, right? But we've got bad boy Savant, who is probably going to end up being more like Nikolai, right? Mm-hmm. And now I'm kind of like, oh God, is like Layla is basically.
But
oh God, what's her name?
But Nikolai was never an asshole.
Zoya.
No. Layla is not Zoya. Layla is, what's the sun summoner's name? Alina. Layla is more like Alina, sort of like doomed, beautiful girl. And
I thought she was more like the Wraith.
Ava is more like Zoya right now. Like,
yeah, I thought Layla was more like the Wraith.
Yes, you're right.
More like who? I'm sorry,
Layla,
Jonathan?
like the Wraith?
The Wraith.
Only in the sense of the romantic connection to Kaz / Severon.
Oh,
the ethnic background,
Yeah, I think we need to ignore the ethnic background, though, because at least in terms of
personality-wise, I don't think Layla and the Wraith have much in common.
No, and I mean, a little bit history-wise, maybe, like in terms of being abused.
Yes,
right? Layla being abused by her father, but I mean, Alina was too in her foster home a little bit, and I think it's the way I put Layla on the level with Alina is more just like she's like this doomed perfect girl, right? I mean, Alina obviously isn't perfect. Neither is Layla, really, but let's put it kind of lightly, whatever. Whereas, and then Eva comes in, and Eva is just straight up mean girl for no reason other than that she wants Severin, and AKA Mal, AKA the Darkling, AKA like every dude that Zoya apparently like had a thing for that Alina got, right? And again, these are they're not one-to-one exact comparisons, but that's what they remind me of. And then in the end, Zoya turned out to be good, and I think that might also be why I'm like, oh, so are we gonna get like a redemption arc for Eva, the mean girl? Like, I don't know. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but if we get a redemption arc for Eva, I think that probably means that Ruslan is not a good guy, and that concerns me. Because I like him, but I feel like I never liked the Darkling, so I can't even compare him to the Darkling. Like I saw through that guy immediately, but like, I just want Ruslan to be like a nice, for some reason, bald guy.
I would love that.
Okay, so I do want to talk, and this is kind of a little bit of a switch, and I don't really have much to say about Layla. I think, for the first 2 parts of this book. Like we've talked about her in reference to other characters,
Mhm.
and at this point, I'm a little annoyed only because I feel like she only exists to like pine after Severin, and it's giving me a headache. Like just thinking about it
Mhm.
right now, it's giving me a headache. And I just am like, you're better than this girl. But do we have any thoughts about Layla? Do you guys have any thoughts about Layla? Because
I was
kinda,
mostly just frustrated with her.
yeah.
I mean, we talked last time about how, and the time before that, for that matter, about how like I'm so over these romances that are will they, won't they, and they're not even really good for each other, and it's just is so frustrating and seems so unnecessary.
Well, I mean, there can't be a will they won't be. They already did, right? They
Yeah,
already
but will
had the
they,
one
won't
night.
they, in terms of like actually managing to have a relationship, which they both clearly want. Yes, they had sex, but the having sex is not necessarily a will they, won't they situation. We've seen plenty of shows. There's plenty of media that has will they, won't they dynamics after they've already had some form of a relationship already.
Yeah. I don't know, Jonathan. Any thoughts on Layla?
No.
Yeah, she
Eh.
she's worried she's gonna die.
Mhm.
That's about it.
I will say I am really glad that she finally told some of the other cookies about that situation.
Oh, yeah.
That was actually really good because that was something that was really frustrating me in the first book, and then in part of the very first part of this book. It was like I hate it when people have this like big secret, but they won't talk to anyone about it.
Yeah.
Why?
The other question I thought about is it actually true?
Oh, sure. I mean, we don't know that. We don't know
I
what
mean,
actually
Layla
happened.
for sure believes it is, and I think
Well, I
that's
know
what's
she believes
important
it is,
right
but the question is it true? We don't know.
We don't know how to what degree it's true.
now. And
We will probably know by next episode.
well, for sure by the end of the series. I mean, hopefully they're not going to leave
Well, her
that way.
birthday's in like 19 days. Well, actually, I mean, theoretically, the book
Yeah, I
could end
think
before
so.
that.
So I did get a little like you did, Nick. I got a little bit into the second the next
The
part
second,
of the
yeah,
book,
the next
and
part.
in the next part of the book, it's like it starts off um like 6 days till the winter conclave, and she's only got like 12 days left or something like that. I mean,
Yeah,
she's getting real close there. So
yeah.
I we'll find out soon. It depends on how long time wise this book lasts, but yes, there's always a chance that what she believes about her life ending the moment she turns, is it 19 or 20? I think it's 19 for some
I think
reason.
it's
That
Well,
feels like
19.
it's the day. I think it's the day she turns 20.
is it okay?
No, I mean, which is she gets 2 years longer than Logan's Run, or or 10 years less, depending on book or movie. But
Yeah, and I mean, I hope that she's not just gonna like I don't know. No, as far as we know, she believes that she is going to die, and that's what matters right now. And but I do agree, Nick. Yeah, that thank God, she finally, and
Yeah,
the fact Sophia and Enrique were just like, okay, well, we have a thing that we have to do
yep,
now. We're not losing another friend, and we're gonna save you. Like there, and she was like so worried their opinions were gonna change and everything, or they were gonna pity her or whatever, and they're just like, nope, get to
nope,
work. But I'm like, hi ho, it's off to work we go to save Layla's
yep,
life.
exactly. Yes, that part was really, really nice. I was like, okay, good job, Layla.
Yeah, I mean, and not only did she tell them about her impending possible / probable death, she also told them about her power,
Yeah,
which was, so she's just opening up all over the place.
Yeah, which
We're not
previously only
we're not counting the
Severon.
randos she was sleeping with and telling them that she was dying.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, that was weird. I'm dying.
I get that makes her a little bit more angsty, but it felt entirely gratuitous.
Unnecessary, yeah.
Like,
But
we're
yeah,
just gonna throw in some sex.
and like of course, Enrique and Sophia
Yeah.
reacted the way they reacted. Like, and speaking of Sophia, she's doing okay. Like,
doing her best.
Yeah, her sister is very sick, possibly dying. That's a little like weird kind of side plot that it's like, where is this gonna go?
Yeah, not clear where that's going, other than it's a way for Sophia to be brought
back into the fold.
But if
because she needs the money, right?
Sick, the problem is that if her sister wasn't sick, she would not have left.
Well, that's true too, but she ran out of money
because her sister was sick.
Right, yeah. And then ran out of money caring for her sister, so therefore she has to get back in the fold.
But it's an unnecessary plot if there isn't another reason for it, because
fair enough.
It wouldn't be necessary. So hopefully there is a reason that this is happening that we'll learn about.
Yeah, because it does, the amount of time that is spent on it, and I mean, and then I think she gets like a note from her sister that like she's got a special doctor care, like Severin like sent a special doctor to her and stuff like that.
That actually happened before she came back.
Okay.
So in her first POV chapter, we learned that her sister's life was only saved by this mysterious doctor who showed up, who said that Sophia had already paid for his services, even though Sophia knew that she hadn't. And then we find out later that Severin had sent the doctor, who gave her sister some mysterious shot that we don't know what it was in it or anything, but that like saved her life.
Yeah. I'm hoping that it's not just some weird side plot to keep Sophia away for a little while. It feels very side note, but also kind of important because this is her sister.
Yeah.
And and God, her awful uncle who is like, you have to like, now you owe me all this money because your sister can't teach my kids. You owe me money. What the fuck world is that?
But if her sister dies, then it's all forgiven.
Mm-hmm.
It's only as long as her sister is alive, Sophia has to work for him and like pay him money. And
I guess because it's like a room and board situation. Like you have to teach my kids for your room and board, but also and listen, that's not incorrect in terms of like historical, like.
I know, it's just upsetting.
Oh, yeah.
Forget historical. There's plenty of times where families do that to relatives all the time today.
Why are people so gross?
I don't know. It's upsetting.
Well, so on that note, other than her sister, like Sophia's still into Enrique. Mm-hmm. And still, I think, feeling awkward about Enrique and Hypnos. And I don't know. There's not as much from Sophia. The first, however many pages, the first 2 parts of this book, she's there. She's doing a job. She's being good, like Sophia is, and she's definitely noticing the tension between Ava and Layla, and she is there for Layla when Layla tells her the truth, and her thoughts on that are basically like, she's my friend, gonna save her, gotta save her, gonna do the thing. I don't know. Yeah, she's Enrique. I think that Sophia is kind of sidelined a little bit in the first half of this book, so I'm hoping that she comes back with a, not vengeance, but comes back hardcore in the second half-ish, parts 3 and 4 of this book, because not enough Sophia, if you ask me.
Agreed. Let's just like deprioritize Severin and Layla for the second half. give us more Enrique and Zofia, and give us some Hypnos.
Yeah.
And then I'll be happy.
That's all we want. More. Okay, so last, I don't want to say even last but not least, because last but also a little bit least is Delphine, the matriarch of House Core. I wanted to talk about her because, again, we get the prologue from her, but she also is very prominent in this book in terms of being part of the whole thing, right? She's there.
Yep.
And I of course, her little prologue ends on a cliffhanger. All we know is that, what's her name? Kahina, I think, Severn's mother, asks, like approaches Delphine, kind of like appears from the shadows, and Delphine is like, ugh, this bitch. And it's like, why you gotta be so rude?
So,
but
yeah, it's the promise me Ned scene.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, but yeah, it is a little weird. It's like, it's almost like she knows she's gonna, like, her and the father are going to die, which is like, it is a little prophetic. Why would you be asking this woman to watch over your son unless you have a bad feeling? Again, I got a really bad feeling.
Well, maybe that was didn't she have powers though? Didn't she have forging?
Yes, yeah. Kahina. Gosh, I hope I'm saying her name right. But
I think it's Kahina.
So maybe one of her talents was a prophetess. Who knows?
I don't know that that's a power that's come up in these books, and God, I hope not, because that's like, ooh. But that's always a questionable. Nobody wants that sort of thing.
Honestly, Layla's is the closest, but hers really only works in the past.
But
give me a second, guys. You guys continue to talk. I need to run.
Okay.
Yeah, I not just like the prologue, but the fact that she rushes in and saves them from the burning, like, what is it called? A troika? It's like a cart, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, she's there with them at the Sleeping Palace and everything. And so we know now for sure. And of course we got that bit at the end of Gilded Wolves where she was like, we can't let Severin be the head of House Van. Like, we can't let him. He's not really the heir. That seems a little bit suspect, but still to me. But
yeah, that's.
She clearly wants to protect him, but also it's like, my God, like, why did your version of protecting have to be to abandon this child who you clearly love?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and we also get that scene where she's like waiting after Severin is hurt, and by the.
That's in the second. That's later.
Oh.
That's in part 3. But yes, she's like, she brings him when they first get to the Sleeping Palace. She like meets him in the hallway and brings him like his special overly buttered toast with the special jam that he likes, and
doesn't she try to serve him at the
tea house or something?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, she tries to serve him something that she thinks he likes at the tea house as well. And I think that, I mean, she clearly loves him. I mean, she's, even if she hadn't straight up said it in the prologue, she clearly loves him, and she has spent her entire life avoiding him. And that like, I just, I'm looking at this because he called her Tanta Fifi, which is, aunt, right? And I'm looking at this as like, I know who my favorite nibbling is. I'm not going to say which one it is of the 5 that I have, but I do have, 5? Yes, 5 that I have, but I do have one. And like, I can't ever imagine just being like, I'm going to be a rude ass bitch to you to like protect you. No, that's not happening. No. And I know it's a different world and a fantasy world and everything, but it's like, did you really have to be this nasty? Like, did you really have to do this?
Well, and the only thing that I can think of is, and I think we talked about this at the end of the last book, if Severon is secretly a part of the Fallen House, then I could start to understand a little bit. Even then, it's hard if you like really loved a child to imagine abandoning them. But if there is that, like, oh, he's a part of, by blood, is a part of the Fallen House, and I'm protecting him by like keeping him separated from that knowledge, then you could kind of start to understand it. But still, it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah. It just feels like, I don't know. Hopefully we'll learn more, because like at this point it's like, I clearly see that you care about this person, and why, and not only care about him, but like now you want to take care of him now.
Right. Yep.
I don't know, Jonathan, and if you've read farther than part 2, Jonathan, please be careful.
I haven't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I already flipped that.
Technically, I haven't read it all because I was having to listen to it as I drove back and forth to New York. So
that's reading, Any
Luckily,
thoughts
you were
about
out of the room when I
and
spoiled
her love for, her very obvious love for Severin, and why the fuck is she ignoring him?
Possibly to protect him.
Well, that's, yeah, I mean, yeah, to protect him is like the excuse, but I still over here just like, it feels like a really big excuse.
It feels like the I'm going to show my love for you by not being in a relationship with you, because otherwise I might hurt you.
No, I don't think that's it. I think it more has to do with some plot elements that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, I'm in between, I think, the two of you, where I see where you're coming from, Nick, but I also think it's more that she didn't know how to protect him and also love him.
Mm-hmm.
And like, she knew she had to protect him, and that might be completely, like, okay, let's say she absolutely had to protect him, right? His mom said, I need you to protect my son. You love him. I need you to protect him. And I think she didn't know how to be the matriarch of her house and also protect him. I'm not saying it's right, true. But it's like, no, it's not right. It's maddening, because like, oh my God, y'all just fucking talk to each other.
Yeah,
like,
seriously. The number of times plot issues come down to just talk to each other is infuriating.
Well, yes.
And I'm not saying that just about this book, by the way. It happens in so many different books that it's just like, if you just fucking talk to each other and communicated, these issues would not exist.
But how isn't that true in real life too? I mean,
yeah, if you're a bad,
how many times are because people don't talk to each other?
Oh, I mean, yes, that's absolutely true. But I think that there are ways for people to. I think there's like something missing, honestly, in writing, where, in real life you can communicate with each other and still also have conflict, right? But in stories, and I'll be honest, very particularly in stories that are young adult, it is all like, just nobody tells anybody anything, and that's that. So I don't know.
And also, yes, Jonathan, you're absolutely right. There are plenty of examples where people don't communicate well, or deliberately don't say something that they should just say to another human. But also, that doesn't make a good story.
No, I get it.
And so I feel like it's a lazy tool to fall back on if you aren't doing an adequate job of explaining why somebody actually isn't sharing this information. And the idea of, well, I'm worried what people will think of me if I share this information, frankly, is not a good excuse from a storytelling perspective of why you didn't share that information. It doesn't mean that it wasn't a good reason. It doesn't mean that it wasn't that plenty of people do that all the time in real life. But from a storytelling perspective, all it does is infuriate me as a reader.
And I think that
because it could be solved by just saying, here's this thing that you need to know.
And I think that good writers, I mean, there are absolutely series that I love where there's like a lack of communication. I mean, honestly, like Song of Ice and Fire, Red Rising is another one. Like, there's absolutely lacks of communication, but that doesn't need to be the crux of all the issues, which I feel is very prevalent in YA lit. And I don't want to hate on YA lit because I do clearly love it.
Yeah, we love it, but it can still infuriate us.
Yes. Okay, so before we close out, I do want to just have a quick conversation about the Sleeping Palace because wow, they found Sleeping Palace, right? And it's this, well, and like I said in the summary, it's more of like a cathedral is what they decide. I think it's very interesting that there is a library devoid of books. I have a feeling there are actually books there. They just need to figure out how to get them to appear. The ice forged animals are weird to me. Like, is there just a whole like atrium of ice forged animals? Is it I was very the logistics of it were confusing to me. Is it attached to, or is it in the ice grotto? Is it attached to the ice grotto? I don't know that the explanation of that was very good.
Yeah, it sounded to me like it was just a part of the ice grotto, but I'm not sure. And that could have just been me trying to like fill in a gap.
Yeah. I don't know, Jonathan, did you like, I could not get a picture in my head of, you know, they see the room filled with the ice forged animals, right? And then they go into the ice grotto through this like one person at a time tunnel. They get into the grotto, and then somehow those animals are charging at them. So I guess it's the same room. I don't know. Could you get a picture in your head of that? Because I could not.
I sort of assumed they came through the tunnel.
But they saw them animate though, didn't they? Like as soon as Severin like started walking up those stairs, they saw
maybe
them
more on the other side.
Maybe. Yeah, it was very. And I mean, I read it and I went back and like kind of skimmed it again, and I still, for the life of me, could not figure out how they got from point A to point B.
So I must admit, the action scenes are the ones that I completely lose of when I'm listening on live.
They are hard to follow when you're listening because there's a lot going on, and
but I mean, even if they weren't, it's like I'm still just unsure. I'm still just very unsure what like where those animals came from. And okay, so they're guardians. I get that. And Severin like stepping up or down. I can't remember if it was up or down. Stepping onto the stairwell.
Down, I think.
Stepping onto whatever the stairwell that was like the band stairwell, whatever, is what caused them to ignite, to act, whatever. But yeah, so Ice Grotto is empty. And I'm actually looking at it now because this is driving me crazy.
Bugging you?
Yeah. Hold on. He steps into. Okay, Zofia creates a torch. Severin goes toward the stairs that it just says toward the stairs at the far end of the grotto that led to the north wall. He takes his first step. From the eastern corner of the wall. Okay, the ice rhino crashed through the glass barrier. So it's two separate rooms. So you can't get into one from the other, or you couldn't get into one from the other. But yeah, I skimmed this again, and I'm reading it. I'm like, okay, I guess, but this seems like okay. So if they were supposed to be guardians of the thing, then why was there a barrier in the first place? This is very.
Maybe they were guardians of multiple things, and they wanted it to be pretty.
I'll be honest, I don't like it.
Aesthetics is the answer.
Okay.
It's
Well,
very pretty. You'd have to be there, Tara. If you were there, you would see how beautiful it is.
I mean, they do a very good job of describing how beautiful this ice palace is. They don't talk much about how cold it is. Maybe they will in the second part, like the second half of this book, but like they don't talk much about how cold it would be in this cathedral/palace made of ice. But whatever. Okay.
That is true, because they talk about how cold it is like in so many other parts of the book, but they don't talk about it there. Maybe somehow it is not as cold inside the cathedral.
Yeah. Oh no. Well, I guess we will see next time. So, any last thoughts?
Yes, I wanted to discuss how I discovered I've mispronounced my daughter's name for 26 years.
Well, I don't know if that's true.
Well, I mean, they pronounce it differently than we have. So.
Oh! In the audiobook, how do they pronounce it?
Thalia.
So was your daughter actually named after the muse of comedy? Because
she was, and there's an irony to that story. So when my first choice for a name was Athena, and
that's a bit much, honestly. I love you guys. That's a bit much.
That was what Anna said, and that if the child is ugly, that's a disaster. So. And then,
meanwhile, you guys got like the most beautiful child ever, but you know.
So at the time, so we were just basically on our way to the hospital when Anna was went into labor, and she said to me, "It's like, oh, I've decided it's good. If it's a girl, it's going to be Talia." And I'm like the Mexican singer, because she's like, yeah, the Mexican singer, which was popular at the time. She goes, I like it. I'm like, fine. I really didn't care. So when we told my father this after Talia was born, my father's like, oh, the Greek muse of comedy. And I'm like, oh, so we actually named her after a Greek deity after all. So there's the irony. But but yeah, it's the Spanish pronunciation of what my father always described as Thalia. But this book pronounced Talia.
Talia. Well,
or Thalia. That's it.
Thalia. Well, Talia is better as a pronunciation, if you ask me. So that's funny, because that was something that I did read far enough ahead where that was like the first thing I noted was like, have to ask Jonathan in next episode if his daughter was actually named after the Greek muse of comedy.
She was.
Which is so like, I mean, I love Talia, but like Talia, but I never like, I mean, I'm not saying she's not amusing, but I feel like you gave her like big shoes to fill.
Well, yeah, but Athena would have been, the goddess of war would have been tougher.
She should be a stand-up comic and not what does she do for work?
Well, at the moment, she's just finished graduate school and is technically unemployed. So I would say at the moment it's more like exercise rider. But
what did she go to graduate school for?
Environmental science. But she just graduated a couple of weeks ago, and her mother wants to take her on a bunch of stuff.
Well, yeah,
she's now looking to start to do something in the fall. But
well, okay. On that note, I'm going to leave us with a quote first. The quote I chose this time is from Enrique. because we love him. And I love this quote
Yes.
because it's the exact opposite of everything Severin is. And yeah, that's what life was, a privilege. He wouldn't waste it chasing vengeance. He would do something vastly more meaningful, more important. And as we close out this episode, we just want to give a shout out to our Heroes Tier patron, Tommy of the TKOK Podcast Network. Yay!
Yay! Thank
you so much, Tommy, for supporting us. Once again, I'm Tara, along with Nick and Jonathan. Thank you for joining us for Sagas and Sass, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.